Hi everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, AJ, for being here. It's great to have you. Or sorry, AJ or Ajay? I didn't
Ajay.
ask. Ajay. So thank you, Ajay, for being here. It's great to have you speaking today. So Ajay is a fellow of the Certified Professional Accountant (FCPA), fellow of the Certified Management Accountants, and Certified Training and Development Professional. Ajay, with partner Teresa Kirkwood, published 3 books, with their most recent titled "The Trainer's Balanced Scorecard: Complete Resources for Linking, Learning, and Growth to Organizational Strategy." Under his leadership, Training Magazine awarded CentralKnowledge their Technology in Action Learning Management Project of the Year for success with Apple. He's an award-winning writer, winning the 2014 and 2015 prestigious TrainingIndustry.com Readership and Editors Award. E-Learning Magazine recognized Ajay as their 2016 Learning Champion and Thought Leader. The World Training Development Congress named Ajay their 2017 Distinguished Trainer. So you guys are in great hands here. Good luck today, Ajay, with your presentation, and thanks for speaking again.
Great, thank you, Alex. And welcome, everybody. I'm really happy to be here with all of you. I just learned about the conference not too long ago. Actually, Alex asked me to be part of it just like last week, and I put something together because I also teach what was not mentioned in my biographies. I teach entrepreneurship at the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University in Ottawa. And so it was funny because serendipity sometimes shows up at the weirdest times. Well, I guess that's why it's called serendipity. And I was teaching my students about market opportunities as an entrepreneur, and coincidentally, that's what I'm going to be talking to you about today. And that's why a bit of the title, right? A little bit, I hate to say clickbait, but you'll understand if you understand the title, you know where it comes from. And I'll talk about that in just a little bit. Do customers really want a faster horse? And so in the meantime, I'm going to try to go through this relatively fast because we have a limited time together. In my mind, I thought it was a half hour, and I realized it's only 20 minutes. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free. I'll try to monitor the chat and make sure that I address your concerns as we move on. So basically, what I want to talk to you about today is, do customers really want a faster horse? And really what I'm talking to you about is, the fact of creating new market opportunities, or finding value, how to create value for some market opportunities in your businesses. And we're going to look at that in a little more detail. If you like to follow me, and I will follow you back, I'm on Twitter at BizLearningDude, and I hope that you do follow me because I do use it as a learning platform, and I love to learn as much from you as you can from me. And so I do write a lot, and I share a lot of articles and interesting stuff that I come across. So I do encourage you to go on Twitter, not as a animosity kind of tool. Okay, so you recognize this face, so most of you do, I hope. And if you don't, I'm not sure where you've been for the last 20, 30 years. But of course, this is Steve Jobs. And it was a quote that I came across a number of years ago, and you probably heard of it. It's a quote that Steve Jobs once said at a speech he made. And it was about market opportunities. And this discussion sort of came up about how does he really listen to customers, or does he look at what opportunities are out there? And allow me to take a minute to read it to you. So he started to say, some say give the customers what they want, but that's not my approach. Our job is to figure out what they're going to want before they do. So what he's trying to say here is that, sometimes the clients don't really know what they want or what they expect. And that he's going to put something out there that he thinks they want, but really he's not asking them. And so he continued to say in the quote that Henry Ford, and this is where my title of my session comes in, Henry Ford once said, if I'd asked customers what they wanted, they would have told me a faster horse. People don't know what they want until you show it to them. And that was interesting because that's where his thought process was coming from, was from Henry Ford, and how he came about, mass manufacturing the automobile. So finally, he comes across as, well, that's why I never rely on market research. Our task is to read things that are not on the page, not yet on the page. Now, this is a little misleading because, it's about talking about not looking at market research. And so the next question I have for you, and I hope you can maybe type in the chat a little bit, was he right? Like, what is he saying here? Was he right? And also, what was he trying to say? And so I don't know if anybody has any thoughts here. And I want you to think about this because, theoretically, in one context, he is right, but I could challenge that. But I know this is not really what he was thinking. There's an underlying message, and you really have to read into the messages that some of these successful entrepreneurs, what they're trying to say. And what he was trying to say is basically, a little bit of this, right? In his first part of his message, he was talking, basically I'm asking you, what do these products have in common? We have Amazon, Post-it notes, Starbucks coffee, specialty coffees, Tesla electric car, the World Wide Web, and of course, computers. I know I put an old picture of an old computer there because at the time, they were all desktops. We really weren't into laptops at the time. So, these are things that, what they have in common is basically you didn't know you needed them or wanted them at the time, right? Now think about it, right? Now we take a lot of these things for granted. But prior to Post-it notes, we would, jot down notes on the side of a page or try to paperclip something to one of our, our notebooks or something like that. Starbucks specialty coffees. And prior to this, most of us were going to Tim Hortons or Dunkin' Donuts at the time when they were still around in Canada, ordering a black coffee for 50 cents. I know I'm dating myself here. I'm sorry. And of course, prior to computers, listen, I'm in accounting, so I wasn't in that generation, but there was a time where accounting was all done by hand and by books, and so prior to computers and Excel and all this wonderful stuff, you didn't know you needed it. And so as we move on here, we see that there's a lot of things that, as Job says, we didn't know we needed it, but we do need it now and we do want it. And so what does this say about market opportunities? What does this say about market research? Now, that's one side of the coin of his conversation, right? I want to take you to the other side of the conversation a little bit. So here's an example. So I'll just move forward here. I don't know if anybody recognizes this. This goes back to the early to mid 90s. This is a product called the Apple Newton. And now, if you were around back then and you were old enough to remember this, at the time this was quite a revolutionary product for the moment. And remember, at the time the internet was just starting up. The World Wide Web was probably a handful of pages at that point in time. And there wasn't really worldwide communications, and not many of us really understood what the internet was about, okay, even at that point in time. So, it only came about really in popularity, the internet, towards the end of the 90s. But Apple thought of, and Jobs says, we want to give people the power of the computing in their hands. And so the question was, at the end of the day, was this a Jobs error? It did flop. It was a product that flopped, right? So let me ask all of you, what did this lead to, though? I mean, was this truly a flop? Did he, misquote himself here? This is, before his quote, did he misquote himself where he brought out a product thinking this is what people wanted and nobody wanted it? I mean, not only price, but there was no real connectivity to it. There was problems in recognition, writing recognition and stuff like that. So he's thinking that he knows what people want, but it flopped. So I want you to reflect, was this a Steve Jobs error? Was this, type thing? And if you think about it, it was an error. However, think about what happened subsequently, right? We got these. So basically, the Apple Newton was really the predecessor to the iPad and possibly the iPhone, and more so on the iPad side, especially the wired connected, Wi-Fi and cellular-based iPads. And this is what we led to. Now, there was a lot of steps between that, of course, but if we fast forward, this is what we got. So was it a Jobs error, or was he just slightly ahead of his time? And then that can happen in your opportunities. I think, and all entrepreneurs think this way, right? We come up with some great ideas and think, wow, people don't know they need it, but this could really work. People want this, and then we find out, we put it out there, and it either fails or flops, and people don't really grasp onto it. It doesn't mean it might have been a mistake. It just might be a little bit ahead of its time, or maybe not executed the way it should have been at the point in time. So we have to think about these things as we move ahead, because in this world, things change very quickly. Markets open up, markets close down, and of course, when unforeseen circumstances like a pandemic hit you, we have certain issues that arise that we didn't foresee coming. So before I get into his quote and how you can build that sustainability and value in the marketplace, and do they really want a faster horse, or do they want something else? Keep in mind a couple of things in entrepreneurship. First, you don't need to be unique. And I get a lot of students, young people, asking me about starting businesses. I have to have something original, something different that has never been invented before. No, that's probably a recipe for failure. At the end of the day, a revolution costs lives, right? If you ever see a revolution happen in history, a lot of people die. There's a lot of blood on the streets, and it's not very pretty, right? But evolution, on the other hand, ensures survival. Darwin taught us that, we continue to evolve and become better, and we survive because of it. And so when I say evolution, I said you have to look for problems and issues out there and existing products and services that you can improve upon. And theoretically, that's what Jobs did with the Newton, and as well he did with Apple when he looked at the BlackBerry to bring out the iPhone. So evolution, he didn't revolutionize, he evolutioned the products and services, although it's perceived that he made a revolution. So let's talk about what Jobs and Ford are trying to convey. So one, here's a couple of steps you need to look at, right? This comes from the New Business Road Test Handbook, and if you ever get a chance, it's a book that we use at Carleton University for students. It's called the New Business Road Test. And you can Google it and you can find it. And there's some steps in here on their mapping process, which is quite interesting. One is, what is the market attractiveness, right? First of all, you have to ask yourself, if you have a great idea or you have a product and service that you want to put out there, before you go out and risk a lot of things, is there a market that's attractive for it? And to a certain extent, I'm sure when the Newton was launched, or thought of, I should say, there was a market of that kind of idea. And there's some market research done. So there was a potential for it. And we see that potential today. It's a slightly ahead of its time back then, but now we have that full connectivity and all that wonderful stuff that we have, the internet, the connection, the Wi-Fi, cellular, and all that kind of stuff that makes these products work properly. So the market attractiveness is there, but how we bring it out, it becomes the challenge, right? So second, what is the industry attractiveness? So now we get into a little, aspect here. So we look at these two things, industry and market together. Industry is about the competitiveness out there, right? When, if you wanted to buy Apple shares, there was a point in time that where you could pinpoint it. One of them was actually back in 2000, I guess 2006, around there, 2005, 2006, when Jobs announced that they're going to diverge from the computer business into the phone business. And everybody thought he was crazy, and this was the end of Apple, and of course, stocks tanked. Now, because at the time, you have to remember, BlackBerry was 90% of the market. It was the gorilla on the planet. You didn't think you could overtake this monolith. Everybody was committed to it. You were tethered to it, sorry about that, in some form. So, how do you topple that kind and bring in this new product, especially when you're a company that's not known for phones at the time, Apple? So the industry attractiveness was not necessarily there, but there was something that nobody spoke about, is the weaknesses in the Achilles heels in the BlackBerry products. But because it wasn't an alternative, we just put up with it, right? There was good things about the product, there was also bad things about the product that really annoyed a lot of us. I know I was annoyed, but there was no other alternative at the time. So, he did a bit of market research here, Job and his team, right? He looked at and said, what annoys them with that product and how can we make it better? And so he carved out an industry attractiveness. He knew where he was going to go, and there was market research. So he's not just putting things on a page, he's actually researching the pages before he goes to market. Third, what are the compelling benefits? What is the benefit of going out there, right, with the new product and services? And you have to look at what the compelling benefits. There's a story here about Netflix and Blockbuster. I don't know if anybody knows this, but Netflix, so the founder of Netflix worked for Blockbuster and the CEO at the time. And the CEO at Blockbuster was pitched about, this potential streaming services coming up and moving towards sort of a virtual kind of environment. Netflix started as a mail order and then went to streaming. And at the time, the CEO of Blockbuster said, no, we're not interested in undermining our current market, right? But there was an attractive element to that market that person ignored. There was an industry trend moving towards a new direction in the video industry. And because they didn't want to upset the apple cart with Blockbuster and the money they were making, the founder of Netflix decided to move on and says, I'm going to try this a different way. And of course, the industry moved on. There was compelling benefits to streaming. And of course, fast forward to today, there is no Blockbuster anymore. And all of us are on Netflix and other streaming services, right? And so It just shows the benefits out there. And can you deliver the results? So it's more than just meeting these first three criteria. At the end of the day, you have to put, basically, as my friend used to say to me, the rubber has to meet the road, right? So at the end of the day, you have to be able to deliver the results to make things happen. If you don't deliver, you're going to fail. And there's been a lot of roadkill in the entrepreneurship world where they meet the first three and then, of course, fail miserably on the delivered results. So you have to make sure that what you can promise and fulfill what you want to fulfill. Now, there's a corollary to that. Have you ever read the book? Oh, it's right behind me, actually. Lean Startup is right back there. The Lean Startup, which speaks to about how technology betas their products out and allows their customers to perfect that product moving back. So they never launch a perfect product. They help get customers to help to build a perfect product, and then they go on a mass launch. And that's one idea that's been adopted by other entrepreneurs in other industries. So you might want to think about that moving forward to build your business. I'm trying to watch the chat. Hopefully the quietness on the chat means I'm doing a good job. If not, or you fall asleep. So either way, if you're falling asleep, I hope you get some good rest on this. Sorry, I'm going the wrong way. So we have to rethink strategy a little bit here, right? When we move forward, those are first elements, but you also have to think about your strategy approaching, because it's more than just sending a product or service out in the market and hoping it succeeds. If you do that, you're not going to be a very successful entrepreneur. Very successful entrepreneurs think holistically and they think about strategy. So first we talk about determining organizational readiness. Are you ready to confront the market? Do you have those elements we just spoke about? And can you go into the details, making sure that the organization is structured properly? Even if you're a small outfit of 5 or 10 people, you have to have the proper elements to be able to manage that to move forward. And so are you into a proper market space? Is your value offering, your value chain within your organization agile and adaptable? Because look, I hate to say it, pandemic, there is a silver lining in all of this, unfortunately, that there's a lot of companies going to shake out a lot of companies who are going to die who weren't agile and adaptive. This was unforeseen, so unfortunately, I hate to say that. But at the end of the day, the ones who are going to survive are going to come out stronger, and so they're going to be able to adapt even more. So you have to think about how ready you are for what comes at you in the marketplace, because there are a lot of things not in your control. Number 2, you have to develop a strategic value proposition. Now, there's a great article out there from Harvard Business Review called Customer Intimacy and Other Value Disciplines. It was written about 20, maybe 25 years ago now. And this speaks to 3 value disciplines. And I'll share a paper that's free in the next slide that you can download from CPA. But it speaks to how you approach the market and what value, because really everybody and their brother and sister can offer a product like yours. I mean, look at Netflix. It's not unique anymore. It has a lot of competitors. It was at one point. But what is the value it's offering, right? And so why are people still committed to Netflix and not, going off into, full off into Apple or into Disney and stuff like that? So you have to look at what is your value proposition. Are you close to your customer? Are you able to customize things? Or are you a product leader? Are you leading the charge and being in that new space? Is that something different? Can you sustain that? Which I don't encourage entrepreneurs to be in the product leadership space. And operational excellence are things like how efficient you are at making things better. You can offer the equivalent product out there, but make it more profitable because of how you set up your efficiencies in your processes. And then, of course, determine key performance indicators. What gets done gets measured, kind of thing, right? Or what gets measured gets done, I should say. And that's very interesting here, because you have to set milestones and benchmarks to know when you have arrived at your destination, right? If I told you we're all going to go to California tomorrow, not California, let's say Vancouver, because borders are closed, what are you going to do that? You're not just going to get in a car and drive. You're going to plan it out, set milestones, set benchmarks. Well, you should do the same thing in your business. Don't let happenstance ruin your journey here. And if you are an entrepreneur and you haven't done that yet, I encourage you to set up those benchmarks and milestones. It does a couple of things. One, it helps you keeps you focused in certain areas, right? I'm quoting here a bit from my book a little bit, but it's a balanced scorecard. And you look at, the financial outcomes you want to attain, but to do that, you have to address customer needs, which then you have to be able to do things internally to be able to address those customer needs. And to do things internally, you have to set up the information, knowledge, and technical capacity to be able to do that within your organization. So these are very interesting metrics that you need to look at setting up to make sure you're able to connect the dots. I'm saying a lot here, and it's a lot to take in. So, and finally, you need to embrace a change strategy, meaning that, like I said before, one reality and one constant, you've heard this before, is change. It's continuous, it's constant, and if you can count on anything, it's change. So understanding you need to really focus and hone in on your strengths to mitigate your weaknesses. And of course, use those strengths to capitalize on opportunities out there that fully align with that readiness that we talked about before and the value proposition in point 2. So make sure that you capitalize on these opportunities. And of course, at any given point in time, you should be able to be agile and adaptive to be able to manage risk and change that happen along the way. Okay, now these things they're not mutually exclusive. They work together. So make sure that you are able to manage all of this. Okay, so there's a free paper out there. I'm an author, as you know, as Alex mentioned, and I wrote a research / white paper for CPA Canada called Rethinking Organizational Strategy. It is a free download. There's no obligation, there's no strings attached. I don't believe in that. And this is the link here. And if you miss out on the link, I encourage you to reach out to me. And I'll give you my contact information shortly. But this speaks in great detail what I just spoke to you about on the last slide. I did it in a couple of minutes, but here this will give you a little bit more thought on it. Okay. So my question to you, before I let you all go here, is, in the last 15 minutes or so, or 20 minutes, I've said a lot. And I sort of dumped a lot of information out of you, and I know I can't ask you to commit to me, but I'm going to ask you to commit to yourselves. And I say Monday here, but tomorrow or whenever, I need you to set a point in time where you can take some of this information, just one piece of information, commit to it and make it happen. If there's any value that you spend 20 minutes with me, for you, is that you take some of this knowledge and actually use it, okay? I don't need credit. I don't need to be thanked. None of that. I want you to be successful. So think about what I said and the slide deck, and hopefully something will help you move yourself forward and make you successful. Okay. Some of my resources, I do a lot of courses with LinkedIn Learning. I'm getting into the accounting space now with LinkedIn Learning, so there's a lot of great courses. So you have access to LinkedIn Learning. It's a massive open online course resource, so you can go there. I have a lot of courses on there, and of course I write a lot of articles, and this is my most recent book. So I hope you get a chance to take a look at it, or read some stuff, and all my articles are accessible for free, so with all these publications. So I want to thank you very much for being here with me today. It's been a pleasure, and I want to thank TorontoJobs.ca for inviting me to be here with you, and it's been a privilege to share my knowledge, and hopefully that you become a success. And I do encourage you to connect with me on LinkedIn, join me on Twitter, email me or follow my blog, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. So thank you very much, everybody. Let me go back here. I'll just leave the chat open here for a few minutes, and I don't know if Alex is back, but if he is, I am done. Alex, hopefully I kept on time.
Hi, Ajay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, so that was a really great presentation. Thanks again for speaking. It's great to have you. I just see one question in the chat here. It looks like it was for a part of your presentation. So this is from Carol Hessling Lee, and apologies if I pronounced that wrong. So she says, sounds like it is along the lines of, if you build it, they will come. Question is, does that work for all businesses?
No, I don't know. I think that goes back to the Jobs quote. No, it's not about, and Jobs was even smarter than that, right? I mean, what he says, you have to take a little more in detail. It's not if they'll build it, they'll come. There's a bit of work in there. And even for Jobs, looking at things like the iPhone and the iPad, he learned from his mistakes what he did before, what the Newton came forward, looked at the mistakes BlackBerry made, did some market research there, looked at what the market wanted. Now, listen, they're technically product leaders, Apple, but at the end of the day, he's a smart entrepreneur as you are, and so he doesn't just jump in the lake with 2 feet in the cold ice and hope for the best. He actually does his homework. So what he says, you got to take it for a grain of salt. And even Henry Ford, that faster horse, right? At the end of the day, yes, the customers did want a faster horse, but he made it a mechanical horse, a car. And even the power within engines, he called it horsepower. So there you go. He knew what they wanted, but he just packaged it and positioned it differently to make sure to address their needs.
Actually, so Carol just sent a message. So she said, sorry, it was meant as a rhetorical question.
Wow, you got an answer anyway, so sorry.
Sorry for the misunderstanding, Carol. But yeah, no, if anyone has any other questions, feel free to put them in chat. We do have just sort of our networking portion of the event starting in about 3 minutes, so that starts at 3:10. And then besides that, we have the main stage panel starting at 3:25. But feel free, Ajay, if you'd like to stay in your session for a few more minutes. If anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in chat. Do you want to go ahead and put maybe your LinkedIn and Twitter just in the chat, just so people can copy them? Oh, sorry, I can't. Ajay, can you still hear me okay?
Oh, I muted you. Sorry about that. I just, I will do that right now.
Awesome.
And so, I know I put it in the, when the keynote was speaking, so let me get that.
Oh yeah, I believe I saw that earlier. You put the links and stuff.
I'll do it again. Here we go. I'm just going to LinkedIn, get the link.
And again, if anyone has any more questions, feel free to put them in Ajay's chat here.
You know what I say when people don't have questions? I tell this to my students, and this is meant as a joke, everybody. So please take it with a grain of salt, okay? That I'm a perfect teacher and I'm a perfect presenter. If nobody has any questions, I'm awesome. So this is really where your cue is to prove me wrong and put a question in there to show that I wasn't that good.
Well, I think it's a pretty good sign if the only question was a rhetorical one. So,
well, I don't know. Maybe you just got bored with it. So. I'm going to put one more link here for people if they want. It's I write for a lot of publications, but this is one of my favorite publications to write for. elearningindustry.com. It speaks more to the learning component within business. But I believe, if people are learners, and I believe everybody is a learner at some point in time, it's always great. And I try to take a controversial angle a bit to challenge people to think critically. So
great. And just to get, I think you mentioned it sort of near the end of your presentation, but if people want to get in contact with you about, any inquiries or anything, how can they best reach you?
Yeah, so I'm going to put my, a couple of things I'm going to do here. One is I'm going to put my, very quickly, I'm trying to do this quickly, sorry about that, profile. And I'll put my email in there too. I'll put my Twitter and my email. And if people want to connect with me, I encourage you to do so. I love having conversations with people. Awesome. I hope I can learn as much from you, as I said at the beginning, that you can from me. So here's my email. Oops. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. Alex, thank you again, too. And I hope we can do this again. This is actually kind of fun.
Awesome. Yeah, we definitely love to have you again in the future. It was a really great presentation. And thank you again for speaking. It was great to have you.
Great. Oh, let me ask you quickly. If people, I can, if people want, they can email me, or I can send it to you if you want the PowerPoint deck, if anybody wants a copy.
They can certainly contact you or myself. Actually, we do have a recording of your presentation available. So if anyone is interested in that, or if you'd like a copy as well, Ajay, feel free to let me know, and I can send you a copy of it or a link to it, and you can share it to anyone.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks again for speaking. It was great to have you. Bye.
Thank you.